Welcome to Holistic Kid Show. My name is Zane.
My name's Abdullah.
And my name's Imad.
November is Diabetes Awareness Month. And did you know that 1.6 million Americans have type 1 diabetes? And the numbers are continuing to grow.
What is type 1 diabetes?
Well, we have an expert here to discuss just that, Ms. Carla Atherton. Carla Atherton is the director of the Healthy Family Formula and the HFF Practitioner Training Academy, host and producer of the Children's Health Summit, author of Family Health Revolution, and even host of the Family Health Revolution podcast, an empowering coach and holistic family health freedom consultant, yoga instructor, and mind body facilitator, and children's health advocate because of the love of her three amazing growing children and her husband. Carla's mission is to support families to achieve their best health through information, guidance, and empowerment. Carla is on a revolutionary mission to empower families to transcend our new normal of ill health and chronic disease. We are so honored to have you on our show
today.
Thank you. Thank you for that lovely introduction, boys. It's really great to be back. You're so much fun. I love talking with you guys, so I'm looking forward to this.
It's our pleasure.
It's our pleasure.
It's our pleasure.
So, you have an amazing story, and we would love to hear it.
Okay. So you mean the diabetes story? How about that? We'll start there because my story is pretty long. So I'm old. But yeah, so I guess my story with diabetes that might be relevant to your audience is that my daughter was diagnosed when she was 11 years old. So that was 10 years ago now. So it led me to a lot of discovery about type 1 diabetes, because if someone gets a diagnosis like that, often you're told is that there's not really anything you can do about it, that you just sort of happen to get diabetes because you have a genetics that make you get diabetes, and that really all you have to do is take insulin. You can eat whatever you want. You don't have to do anything different in your life because that's sort of how it is. But as you guys know, and having the mom that you have, even if you don't have diabetes, you can have all kinds of issues from not taking care of your body, right? So if you have diabetes, you're probably not wanting to eat a whole bunch of sugar. You're probably wanting to sleep and have fun and exercise. Those things become a lot more important. So I knew that at that point, what I was being told wasn't exactly what the truth was. And so I set out to find out the truth. And then that took me to this day. It's been 10 years, right? So what I do now is I help people, not just with type 1 diabetes, with chronic illness, to uncover what happened to make them get or develop type 1 diabetes, and then also what they can do about making their kids or helping their kids to be as healthy as possible. That's kind of my story.
What is type 1 diabetes?
Okay, well, there's a couple different kinds of diabetes, and the two that most people understand are type 1 and type 2. So type 2 is more like lifestyle, right? So if you don't eat well and you kind of, you can gain weight because you're not eating very well and your body's not getting the right fuel. And if you don't exercise, you kind of treat yourself a little bit badly, you can actually develop something called type 2 diabetes, which means that your body isn't using the hormones well enough, namely insulin, to get the sugar into your cell. Does that make sense? So if you have sugar, if you have sugar in your bloodstream, it's toxic. It hurts your brain. It hurts all your organs. And so they actually tend to break down. But type 1 is a little different. the lifestyle stuff, that has to do with it for sure. It's important what you eat, and it's important that you sleep, and it's important that you have fun and exercise. But there's an extra component called autoimmunity. So do you know what that means, autoimmunity? It's okay if you don't.
Yeah, I forgot.
No, okay. So with autoimmunity, so it means that there's sort of like a self autoimmunity. Auto means self, and then immunity, right? Your immune system. So it's the immune system kind of like having an attack on itself, on its own body parts, or maybe right? So that's what's sort of going on with type 1, but it's much more complex than that. But it is that idea that something in the body is being attacked by your own immune system. So it can cause things like maybe the pancreas not to work really well, which is a really important organ with type 1 diabetes because it produces insulin, and insulin allows the sugar into the cell, right? So we don't get toxic. So it's not in the blood. Remember when I said that? It's toxic if it's in the bloodstream. So, and that's not happening. So for some reason, there's an issue there. So type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune reason for the diabetes to happen in the first place. So it's a little more complicated to heal from type 1 than it is for type 2. Does that make sense?
One question.
Insulin? Okay, so the hormone. Go ahead.
So one question before the next question. So I know some people thinking this. Is there a type 3 diabetes?
Yeah. Well, they call it type 3, but it's actually, they call it Alzheimer's disease type 3 diabetes, actually, because it's blood sugar. If it's high and it's not getting to the cell, it becomes toxic to the brain, and it can create plaques within the brain because the body's trying to protect itself. So then it can turn into Alzheimer's. Is that what you're thinking about? Type 3? There's also type 1.5, which is a combination of type 1 and type 2. And there's also adult onset. So most of the time, people who are diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, they're diagnosed when they're kids, like your age, right? Like that would be no fun. But most of the time, people are diagnosed, right, when they're kids. But sometimes people can be diagnosed when they're adults. Sometimes people can be diagnosed like later on in their teenagers. And then sometimes there's no autoimmune issue with the pancreas, but it's with the insulin itself. So the body's actually getting rid of the insulin it needs. So it's pretty complex, hey? So yes, there is a type 3, but it's not technically diabetes. It's what people are calling type 3, which is associated with Alzheimer's and the effects on the brain. Good question. I didn't even have that on your list. What is insulin? Okay, so insulin is the hormone that is produced by the pancreatic beta cells. So they're like these little beta cells in the pancreas. And so that hormone is released in response to to sugar being eaten. So you're eating sugar, your pancreas excretes insulin, and insulin shuttles, it helps the sugar get into the cell. So you've got the cell, the sugar has to get in there because the sugar is important for energy. We need that, right? But if the cell doesn't open, like the insulin opens it and gets the sugar in, but if it doesn't have insulin, it doesn't open, sugar can't get in, and it's all getting toxic in the bloodstream. That's what causes all the problems with the brain and all the organs in the body. And that's why type 1 can be pretty dangerous, because the insulin isn't being produced, or it's not being produced enough for the sugar to get into the cell.
So basically, insulin is like a key to open up the cell. And without insulin, then your body gets unhealthy.
Exactly. Nice.
Why is diabetes a problem?
Well, because again, when you have toxic levels of sugar, right, it actually damages organs. So like I said, the brain, like all the organs in the body. And also it all causes all kinds of like mayhem in the, like, because there's problems with other hormones that can happen because of this, or other neurochemicals, which are the brain chemicals that make you feel happy, sad, angry, agitated, stressed out. So, so that's very stressful to the body as well. So when you have sugars, like, so if you have diabetes, right, there are not, like, you can't really, it's really hard to get this nice level amount of sugar where you feel pretty good most of the time. You'll have like this. So sometimes it's like high. And if you get high blood sugar, you have symptoms. You feel terrible. You could be like sluggish. You could be even jittery, because sometimes people get really like shaky if they have high blood sugar, but they mostly get those shakes when they have low blood sugar, because the low blood sugar is very dangerous as well. So if you know that, it's called hypoglycemia, which means too low of sugar, and that can cause problems as well. So you'll have these ups and downs, you'll have emotional roller coasters, you'll feel terrible. And so that's a problem just day-to-day living. Like if you felt like that, you're not gonna do well in school. You're not gonna do well in life. Your brothers are gonna annoy you, or it doesn't feel good to have highs and lows in blood sugar. So that's why it's a problem, is that there's a constant need to balance everything out, and it's really it can be tough to make sure that you can keep that balance. So lots of attention has to be paid to the diet, lifestyle, sleeping, all those things, and then addressing what might have caused the diabetes in the first place.
So that is so amazing. And
Amazing.
And so,
Amazing.
So what are the symptoms? What are the symptoms of diabetes type 1?
So there are lots that we don't actually associate with type 1 diabetes. We can associate with all kinds of other things. But if there are signs and you're thinking, am I still good? I'm freezing a little bit. So you've got me here, guys?
Yeah,
you got me? Okay. Just give me a little, if anything happens with our connection. But with type 1, okay, so if parents are like, okay, is my child, are there symptoms? Like, should I get them tested? That kind of thing. Or if you, like kids, I don't know if you have, who listens to your show, if you have kids listening, just things to watch out for. Like, I'm not feeling quite right. So fatigue. But like fatigue is something that a lot of people feel for most conditions. Like if you're tired, you could have the flu, you could have, all kinds of other things, but that's a big red flag for type 1 diabetes. Irritability is another one. Being very thirsty. Okay, so like really thirsty, like I want to drink a ton of water and I just can't stop. It's not actually making me feel less thirsty. That's another symptom. What else? Oh, and sometimes people's vision gets a little weird because the eyes are very sensitive. It's like the eyes have they're one of the first organs to respond to any sort of, imbalance in the body. So a lot of times the vision will get blurry, like just out of nowhere. Like, it's like if you were all of a sudden like, oh man, I need glasses, like tomorrow. That doesn't usually happen, right? So that's like sort of a red flag. And then sometimes you can get a strange smelling breath. So it's basically because the body is burning fat to keep itself energized because it's not getting the sugar into the cell, right? So then it's called ketone breath, and it smells kind of like metallic and strange. So that's another symptom.
So we have heard people improve with diabetes type 2. Can people improve diabetes type 1?
Yes. Yeah, that's a for sure. And I think that a lot of people don't get taught that. They think that there's nothing they can do and they just need to take enough insulin to cover the sugar they're eating. But that is absolutely not true. All of those things that you boys talk to all your experts about, like and I've already mentioned many times, a couple of times in our interview, that have to do with lifestyle. Those are extremely important. And because they could be causal factors, which means they could be one of the reasons why diabetes was developed in the first place. Or it could also be something that perpetuates it, or it can make things worse. So, so for instance, diet, if you're eating a very high sugar diet and you have type 1 diabetes, you can make things worse because you have a constant up and down. You're on that roller coaster. Like, that's what I call it, the diabetes roller coaster. And so being able to make sure that you have a good, healthy diet is exceptionally important. And you will always have improvement in blood sugar levels. And then what does that prevent? Prevents that type 3 diabetes, right? It prevents damage to the brain. It prevents further damage to the organs or the pancreas or whatever else. And it improves the mood of people, so they have a better quality of life. So that's only one thing, but there are lots of other like deeper things we can look at. So when I teach my programs, I won't bore you with the details, but some of those things we can find out the root causes. And so if we address those root causes, then we have a chance at significantly reducing insulin needs, or even some people eliminate their need to take insulin at all because they've addressed what is malfunctioning in the first place. Instead of just, kind of putting on a Band-Aid, we want to get in there and stitch up the wound, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So what can kids do to help improve their type 1 diabetes?
Well, again, try not to look at it as a bad thing if you have to eat better. And if you just make sure you need to exercise, if you've got to go to bed and not play those video games late into the night, those are actually things that you have the privilege of knowing. So if you know that, and it's a little bit of a shift in thinking, because sometimes we think, well, I can't do this and I can't go trick-or-treating and eat my whole bag of candy in one night. Sometimes kids will feel like they're getting robbed of their childhood, or they're getting told what to do all the time. But really, I encourage kids to take their health into their own hands and say, you know what, this isn't good for me, and I don't really want it. And my parents are really just wanting me to be healthy. So I think that I can have different kinds of treats, or, treat my body well. And I'm not a garbage can. I only have this one body, and I really want to take care of it. So I think that changing your ideas about the things that are good for you, like, ew, broccoli, or I don't want to do that. We can I encourage kids to actually really take their health into their own hands. I was actually talking to my daughter this morning, and she said, I practice yoga. Do you guys practice? Like, do you know much about yoga?
Yeah, we've done some yoga.
Yeah.
Okay. So I practice yoga, and my daughter was saying, hey, I saw this girl. She's like your age. I think probably, well, somewhere, she might be even 12 or something. I don't know. She's a kid, and she teaches other kids how to practice yoga. It's not just, all this stuff isn't just for old people. It's for all of us, right? It's for all of us. It's just that you need someone teaching you, maybe that is like you, young and interested in the same things of health. So yeah, so that's a couple of tips that I have for kids.
That is so awesome.
Awesome.
So, what foods should a child with type 2 diabetes focus on? We got the broccoli, the Brussels sprouts, but besides all the vegetables, like, what kind of foods have the kind of vitamins that you need?
Okay, I'll tell you what are not beneficial, and then we'll go into the foods that are. So obviously, we want to eat as little, or foods that are closest to nature, right? So whole foods. And we want to make sure, if we really want to be in that produce aisle that you're talking about, like, right, the vegetables, and then some fruit. we don't want to eat like 4 pineapples. That's just too much for the body to handle, especially if you've got issues with blood sugar as it is. But it's not like a couple pieces are going to be the worst thing ever, because it's a whole food. So, but we don't want to eat too many things that are really processed. So all the stuff you guys know about, right? Bags, boxes, cans, like Twinkies, junk food, stuff that's got really bad oils, things like that. Because those bad oils will keep the blood sugar high for longer, especially if it's paired with sugar. So anything like say chips that are fried, they have lots of carbohydrates, like a lot of that turns into sugar very quickly, and it'll keep the blood sugar high longer because it's got a lot of bad oils in it. So, okay, so the beneficial stuff would be those really basic tenets of good food. So we want to have whole foods, closest to nature as possible, anti-inflammatory foods, because diabetes is an inflammatory condition, and we want to eat the rainbow, right? All that stuff. Right. We want to have adequate protein, right? Eat the rainbow, adequate protein, and lots of like really nice healthy fats. It's really, those are very important. I would say to parents of kids who have type 1, I would ditch the gluten for sure. And I would ditch the dairy even, because there is a protein, a peptide in dairy, casein A1B, that can be cross-reactive with the beta cells. So it can actually affect the functioning of the pancreas to make insulin. So those are a couple things that I would suggest for kids who have type 1.
So basically, a lot of the foods that kids don't like, you should eat.
Do you not like those?
No, there's always books on how the one kid doesn't like the Brussels sprouts or the broccoli, and always like they're basically kids are eating the opposite of what they should be eating.
Yeah, I know. You know what? We could have a total, like another hour, spent together on another show of yours just talking about that. I would love to pick your brains about why kids don't like it and why there's a resistance and why junk food's so appealing. Yeah. I would love to know that someday. We should talk about that someday, guys.
That would be amazing.
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 So what other lifestyle tips do you have for those trying to improve from diabetes type 1, including stuff like grounding and getting hydrated and even stress management?
Love those. I love those. Okay, so let's start with the last one, because stress is huge. The stress actually causes every single illness you can think of. And it could be a stressor. Yeah, it could be a stressor that is an infection, or, a bacteria, a virus, a parasite. It could be mold in the environment, but it can also be a mental, emotional stressor. So where you feel like you're being chased by a bear, even though you're not, right? But all those chemical reactions happen in your body that it thinks it's actually being chased by a bear. So one really good thing is that, and I don't think kids are taught this enough, is to meditate, right? To be able to center yourself. And I'm going to have a fit now, or I'm going to spaz, or I'm upset about something or whatever, being able to self-regulate. That's really important for you guys to know that. And also prevent that. So like a daily practice, and your family's pretty tight, and I bet you have some daily practices. Some families are religious. Some families just like to spend time together. Some families meditate together. Some families just teach their kids like breathing techniques. But I think every kid needs some kind of tool in that area, right? So yeah, so managing stress for sure. Environment is actually really, really important. And that's where we're going to find some of those root causes of the onset of type 1. And that could be chemicals, right? It could, and there's a lot of sources for chemicals. Okay. So it could even be an air freshener in your car. There are a lot of things it could be your laundry detergent. So everything could be green, right? Like no artificial stuff, no garbage in there that's going to disrupt your immune system, because that's a stressor on the body. And EMF, I think that you guys said something about grounding. I do want to say electromagnetic fields like Wi-Fi, right? Wireless stuff like Alexa, play my music, those things you don't have to plug in, right?
Yeah.
Those are actually really damaging and they cause a lot of inflammation in the body. So you're not going to get really far if you've got if you're laying beside your Wi-Fi router. And then what was their first one? You said, grounding, yeah, getting outside. Guys, I'm sure you guys are outside a lot because it's not that hard to get kids outside. Sometimes though, if people are playing a lot of video games or something like that, but get outside. Vitamin D is vital. So we want vitamin D, and if you don't get enough sun, taking vitamin D is actually critical. It's one of the top 3 that I actually tell people to take if they have type 1 diabetes. And getting outside, fun, play, always be creative, get a lot of exercise, right? Just when kids have type 1, they have to make sure they watch, their blood sugars. So because if they exercise, it can actually go higher or lower. We don't really know what's going to happen with that, so you just have to monitor that. But exercise is fundamental. And then, of course, like I said, sleep. So getting enough sleep and at the right time. I don't mean to be up till 2 o'clock in the morning and then sleep till 2. You guys probably don't do any of that, but you're not old enough for that. It's the teenagers that are doing that. Right? Actually, you are. You're a teenager now.
Yeah, I am. I sleep at 9:30 and wake up at 6. So.
Wow. Good habits. Mm-hmm.
What tests can we do to help find the root cause to meditation?
And you also mentioned infections. How can we check those out? Or how can we check those?
Okay, so you want to know what tests we can run to check for things like infections, like root causes. Yeah. Okay, so a lot of these tests you can't find in a conventional office, right? Like a conventional doctor's office. Some of them you can, but some of them you need to seek out like specialty labs and people like me, you kind of know which ones to look for. I test everything from environment to infections to like toxicities and to also what's going on, even sometimes in the brain. So, so when you're testing to find root causes, first you're looking at what the lifestyle is. So did that family get exposed to any sort of chemicals? Did that child, were they sick with something, before they developed diabetes, right? So there are tests that you can run for various viruses and bacteria, parasites, mold. I'm also testing for things like heavy metals and chemicals. So glyphosate, nasty. If you don't eat organic, you will certainly have glyphosate in your body, which you guys, I'm sure you know this. So organics is another really important thing when you're looking at type 1 diabetes and any autoimmune condition. So cleaning, So so that's those are also things that we're looking for. And so, so those are some of the basics upstream if you're looking for root causes. Oh, and I would also look for food reactivity.
That was so empowering. Thank you so much for giving us so much hope for diabetes type 1. What is one thing kids can start today to help overall health and healing?
Even though if that kiddo has type 1, it's pretty big, and usually kids get it. Like when they get type 1, they know that this is a big deal. And so it can really feel difficult. It can feel scary. It can feel like I'm trapped. Like I don't have any choices. This is going to be with me forever. And I just want kids to know that they can still live their lives and be very healthy and enjoy their lives. And I really encourage kids to just continue to do that. Just continue to play and be with their friends. And they're going to have to make adjustments, but see those adjustments as an opportunity to maintain their health and stay really well, so really well into their future. So and to seek out help and to talk to your parents about those things. If you're saying, I need some help with this, I've got to talk to somebody about this because this is big and I'm worried, or whatever those kids are feeling. I think that that's really important for them to have someone to talk to and be able to just talk, like not be quiet about it. Seek some help themselves if they need that, to reach out to the adults and the adults that they trust. So and then just eat well. Eat your mom writes a lot about nutrition. Have fun. I know you guys cook a little bit. My kids, we spend a lot of time in the kitchen. They're bigger than you, but we spend a lot of time in the kitchen. So enjoy that. Yeah, and taking good care of your body.
That was amazing.
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 Wow. Thank you again. Where can people learn more about you and your work? Please tell us your upcoming courses for diabetes type 1.
Oh, yeah, sure. Okay, so my website, little bit of a mess, but all my information is there. So it's called healthyfamilyformula.com. So healthyfamilyformula.com. Most of my work is there, my podcast and my upcoming stuff. But my half-day, so I've got a half-day session coming up for parents of children with type 1 diabetes. So it's not this Saturday, but next. So on November 13th, I'm doing a half-day session in the afternoon that gives parents a really good quick start into the causes, all the details about type 1 diabetes, the different types that we touched on today, as well as some supports and some ways to move forward and start, really doing a good job at improving their children's health that have type 1. So it's a quick start. It's like an orientation. And then from there, I have a 6-week program that I'm taking 10 families on, and we do like a very thorough planning, intake, implementation session, and we do 6 different, like group coaching sessions where parents can ask questions. But there's an accompanying recorded sessions that come with that. So it's a very in-depth program for parents who really want to dig in, find root causes, do some testing, and really reverse this autoimmune, cascade or experience their child is having. So the goal is to improve as much as we can with that program.
That was so empowering. Everyone make sure to follow Ms Carla on social media and her book.
Oh, hey, sweetie. Can I interrupt you for a sec?
Yes.
Also, okay, so if they want to ask me about this program, go to my website, and then there's a link that says book a meet and greet with Carla. They just book a meet and greet and I can tell them all about it, okay? Because you can't just register from the website. You have to talk to me, and then then I can see what people need, and then send them an email after that. Okay, so I'll let you do your finishing stuff. Thank you.
And her book and courses are a must get. She will change your life forever, just like she has changed ours.
For the second time.
Thank you so much, Ms. Carla. Let's recap Ms. Carla's key points.
Autoimmune diseases, including diabetes, type 1, can be managed and improved with our lifestyles when we can lower overall inflammation. By type 1 diabetes can be a lot, but can be so empowering. It can be so empowering. So it's time to take charge of your own health. So you change your idea of what is good for you.
Eat real whole foods that are close to nature.
And avoid junk foods with bad oils, like all of those oily chips and fries, and because they can cause high blood sugar. and fried chips, which turn into sugar quickly. One will will keep the blood sugar higher longer because of the kind of oils. And remember to ditch the gluten and ditch the dairy, even if it's your favorite snack.
Stress can cause every illness. You can think of stress can cause every illness you can think of. So look for infections or mental or emotional issues. Where you look, where you think you are being chased by a bear. So make sure to meditate to help us kids bodies self-regulate. Get a lot of exercise, play, and get creative, and even try yoga.
Make sure you are getting enough sleep.
Because sleep is how your body fixes yourself. And chemicals can lead to hormonal issues and disrupt your immune system, which is one of the things that are helping defend your body. And remember to limit chemicals and EMFs that can lead to damage to the body and the brain. And remember to just walk outside in the nature and ground and just play and get outside.
Make sure you are getting enough vitamin D. Have lots of fun taking care of your body.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Until next time, I'm Zain Ansari.
I'm Abdullah.
And I'm Imad.
Follow my family and I on social media, Holistic Mom MD, and look out for my mom's book, The Holistic RX, Your Guide to Healing Chronic Inflammation and Disease, and the amazing children's book we wrote together called Adam's Healing Adventure, The Power of Rainbow Foods. So check it out on Amazon. Yay! If you order today, you get lots of free gifts. And we all love free gifts.
We do.
Yep.
We do.
Kids need to learn from other kids. Please download our podcast on iTunes and leave a review so other kids and families can benefit. We need to work together to create a healthier future for all of us and the planet. Join us next week for another episode of the Holistic Kids Show, where kids are empowering kids. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, boys.